Morning. My name is Dan Dirks. I'm the director of the Detroit Department of Transportation. About 18 months ago, we started our journey to improve service for the residents and the riders of the Detroit Department of Transportation. And we've been making great strides. Today is recognition of one of those big strides on how we are going to make our service better. We are taking care of our drivers. We are doing what we can. Drivers are the heart and soul of any transit system, and I happen to think we have some of the very best in the country right here. Through great odds over the last number of years, they've taken sacrifices and they've responded well. With that, I'd like to introduce our ATU president, Fred Westbrook.
Good morning, everyone. It's Fred Westbrook, president of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 26 here in the city of Detroit. I represent the city bus drivers, the fine men and women who serve this city and take the citizens of Detroit where they have to go. But before I say anything, I'd like to introduce my executive board, who was all part of this negotiation team. We have Glenn Tobert, board member out of Shoemaker Terminal. We have Ed Smith, the steward out of Shoemaker Terminal. We have Shatron Collier, the board member out of Gilbert. And we have Mike Toller, the steward out of Gilbert. We have our financial secretary, treasurer, Henry Faulkner, and Willie Mitchell out of Coolidge Terminal, and our vice president, William. Well, let me start by saying this. Over the past 2 years, we're in negotiations trying to get the best contract that we could get for our membership. I don't know if everyone is aware of the plan of adjustment that was left on the table by Kevin Orr and agreed to by Judge Rose, but we was under this plan of adjustment. So we had to find out what was the best route to go for our members. Under Jones Day and Kevin Orr, the contract was rejected. Then the bankruptcy came, and then Mayor Duggan took office. And we just knew we was going to get somewhere with Mayor Duggan and the new director, Dan Dirks, because they know transportation. So when we sat down at the table, we started making progress. To be honest with you, this is not the best deal as far as we're concerned for bus drivers. We would never be satisfied until we are parity with SMART and any other transportation system in the metro area. But Dan Dirks and Mayor Duggan said this is a step, and that's the way and the route we're headed. So we're okay with that. So this contract that we just ratified, we think is the best deal we can get from the city of Detroit under the circumstances that they're under. And the majority of our members understood, and the contract was ratified. So we'd like to thank Dan Dirks, we'd like to thank Mayor Duggan, and we'd like to thank his team and everybody that was involved of getting this deal together. And we look forward to next negotiations where we can climb a little bit higher. Thank you.
Nothing was a greater embarrassment to this city when I took office than our bus service. Nearly a third of our residents do not have a car. They need to rely on the buses. And yet, when I started here, there were days where 40% of the buses just didn't show up. We didn't have enough drivers. We couldn't repair the buses. The buses were so old they weren't salvageable. And you had people stand on the corner hour and a half for a bus. When they showed up, they generally took their frustration out on the drivers, who were the ones who were actually showing up for work. So the people who were doing the job were the ones that took the brunt of the aggravation. We've done a number of things over the last year and a half with the transit police, the cameras, the 80 new buses. Now we're at full pullout. But we had to do something to treat the drivers better. And the emergency manager entered into contracts with a number of the unions, did not, for a number of legal reasons, get an agreement with the bus drivers. These bus drivers in 2010 took an 8% wage cut and gave up a week of vacation, which is the equivalent of 10% reduction. That was the last time they had an agreement. So you can understand they weren't all that excited about contract negotiations. But we sat down, came up with a solution where they're not at parity with SMART or Ann Arbor Transit or the Capital Area Transit in Lansing. But our police officers aren't at parity with their suburban counterparts. Our firefighters are not at parity with their suburban counterparts. These are things we're going to have to fix over time. And so we sat together and said, look, we can do a 6% wage hike. We can do a 4% bonus at the time of signing. That money is there in the budget with some things that the union agreed to reduce absenteeism. But this contract has to be approved by both the City Council and the Financial Review Commission. And so 2 weeks ago, I took the concept of this to the Financial Review Commission, because the last thing we needed was for the drivers to ratify the contract and then the FRC turned it down. And the key part of this is this. One of the steps that's going to allow the drivers to get closer to parity is so-called fare box sharing. And this is something we spent a lot of hours talking about. I said, here's how much we have in the budget. We can do 6%. But if we get more riders, if we collect more revenue, let's have an agreement where the drivers share in the upside. And these drivers have all kinds of ideas on how to fix fare box, where to change routes, things we can do to build ridership. And so what we've agreed to is there is a base year last year, approximately $18 million in revenue for the buses. That's the base year. If we grow this year, this started July 1st, if we grow over that base year, we'll share 30% of the increase with the drivers, up to $325 a driver the first year, then $500, $625, and $750. So there is, in effect, a built-in raises on top of the base raises if we all work together and make the bus system work. So as people have confidence in DDOT and come back to our bus service, the compensation of the men and women driving those vehicles will also go up. We had to treat our drivers fairly. They are responsible for the lives of 600,000 passengers every single week. And so we aren't all the way to parity this time, but I'm hoping in the coming years we'll keep moving in the right direction. And I think the ratification vote on Friday was a vote of confidence that DDOT is heading the right way. I also want to thank Dave Masseron, who chipped in on the negotiating team, our Deputy Chief of Staff, who has all kinds of assignments now, and Dan Dirks, who was actively engaged. And one of the strongest voices since I have been here for putting more buses on the road, for treating our employees better, and improving bus service has been the councilman for the 4th District. And let me introduce my partner, Andre Spivak.
Good morning to Mayor Duggan and Dan Dirks and Mr. Westbrook and the entire men and women of ATF and all of our DDOT employees, ATU, excuse me, and ATF, ATU, right. It's good news coming out of this building here. The rollout of buses, the new buses, and now increased income for our drivers. And I told the mayor a minute ago, we are all in the community, but our bus drivers interact with the public probably more than we do on a daily basis, and they are our public servants. I've been in this facility and toured the Warren headquarters here. I've rode the buses, and our drivers do a tremendous job in making sure they represent our city and that they are our good public servants. The mayor and I also, many of our colleagues, our aim is to employ more Detroiters. We don't produce jobs, but we produce an environment to hire more Detroiters. And so our initiative here with our ratification of this contract will allow our bus drivers to gain more employment, and they will have more of a vested interest in this department here, DDOT. So I'm very grateful today. This is a small step in allowing them to be a part of the growth of our city. And I hope that we will have, it's always good to have a ratified contract and not an imposed contract. So I hope that my colleagues will see the contract, we'll approve it, go to the FRC, and support our men and women who are here working to get us throughout the city of Detroit. I house one of the rollout points here in Detroit, the Shoemaker site in District 4, Warren and Shoemaker. And it's always good news that we are supporting our employees, that they know every single employee in the city of Detroit, they have a role in making sure our city runs smoothly and efficiently. So today is very good news coming out of DDOT. And we hope that after the 4-year period with Mr. Westbrook, we can get you all a little bit more money. And I have to say this. Mayor Duggan has gone far and wide to find good people to run these departments. And I'm very glad that he found Dan Dirks to come and run our DDOT department. Dan, you've done a great job. And to all of our men and women who work here, we thank you so very much. And we're hoping that we will find parity with SMART and other systems, because our people here at DDOT are some of the hardest working men and women who drive our coaches, who repair our coaches, who do administrative duties, some of the hardest working people here in our region. And we hope that going forward we can have more of a greater relationship, and hope my colleagues will see the contract, approve it, and move on and do great work here. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
All right, thank you all for coming.